Hello there, guys. This is new DM Ariel coming to you from beautiful Northern California. And I want to say that I am really sorry that I have not dropped any videos for a couple of weeks now. I think several weeks. And it's been kind of an off time because I've had some issues with that I had to, some personal issues. But I'm back and I'm hoping to make more videos for you. And today I wanted to go ahead and make a video about, I don't know if I touched upon this topic before. I was talking about in an earlier video about some mechanics from older editions of Dungeons and Dragons that you can drop into your 5e game. And I wanted to touch upon that and expand on Moldvay. Here is my copy. I don't know if you can see that well, but that's my copy of the Moldvay rule set. And there's a mechanic there for combat that I really like. And I talked about, I think briefly before, maybe during the Moldvay video discussion, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth into the mechanic dealing with morale for when you're fighting a group of monsters or a group of creatures. And morale is something that was around in first, second, and definitely the basic edition of Dungeons and Dragons. So we'll take a look at that today and go a little bit more in depth into that. All right, so let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and this is my basic rules. The Moldvay all the way before first edition, and we wanted to take a look at combat. And like I said, I wanted to go ahead and incorporate the morale mechanic in the combat because I was playing again. I was DMing a game today, and I thought it was really nice to be able to have that specific mechanic in the combat part of the adventure. So if we go to, let's see, part 5 of Encounters, combat is on page 24. We'll turn to page 24 real quick. Oh, actually, I'm on the right page. Here's morale, which is listed as an optional combat mechanic on page 27 of the rule book. And it basically talks about how any creature in battle may try to run away or surrender. Characters are never forced to do it. A character always reacts in the way the player wishes. NPCs and monsters, however, may decide to run away or surrender, and to handle that situation, each monster is given a morale score. Good morale indicates a willingness to fight regardless of the odds, whereas bad morale, a low score, means a monster will tend to panic and desire to withdraw from combat. And I really, as an example of that, I do have the monster manual from second edition. I have the first edition one too, but it doesn't seem to list that. So I don't know if it's a mechanic that they incorporated fully into AD&D second edition. But here you can see, for example, the Cloud Dragon. Nice photo of the Cloud Dragon. And then you have the stats, your stat blocks. And this is something that I really like about fourth edition. Third edition was a little like this. Second edition for sure. Fifth edition doesn't seem to have very detailed stat blocks. They just give you the basics. But in the old monster manuals, they would give you the stats, and then you could go ahead and read about the characteristics of the monsters, which is really cool. And then you could do, it talks about like combat and special abilities, and it goes into, you know, their habitat and their ecology. So what I'm trying to say is that it was way more detailed, and I really like that. Now, to be fair to 5th edition and to the modern game, the way they got around that is Wizards of the Coast doesn't give you a lot of lore or a lot of specifics from each creature, but they do supplement that with it's not very detailed necessarily in each category of the monster manual, But they do supplement that with some of the supplementary books like Bolo's Guide to Monsters, some of the other bestiaries, like Mordecai's Tome of Foes. And I know that the new one that just came out, which was the Monsters of the Multiverse, has all the stats, but it's not as detailed in the lore chapters as we had in the other books. But anyway, I digress. We're here to talk about morale, which is an old mechanic for Dungeons and Dragons. And you can see that the Cloud Dragon, for example, each monster will have their own stats, alignment, hit dice, a thaco, which is no longer used, and there's the morale value, right? It's a large size creature, and their morale value is listed as fanatic and as a 17. And I'm not exactly sure what fanatic means. I know just the score. So it gives you like the score in the parentheses, and so you know what their morale score. You take a look. It's the same for any monster. I mean, here's the Galeb Dur. A Galeb Dur is a monster with very high armor class, -2, because the armor class was not ascending, it was a descending armor class, of the better below 0, and you hit dice, and then you can see that also a 17 morale. So if you go back, I don't know if they tweaked it for AD&D, but if you go back to the basic morale rules, the way it worked is a monster's morale score was given in each monster description, and the score was a number between 2 to 12. The higher the morale score, the better the morale. A score of 6 to 8 was considered average, and a score of 2 then means that the monster is not going to fight, because you got a range between 2 to 12. So if you have a 2 on your score, that means the monster will not be fighting. But if you get the maximum score of 12, that means that the monster will fight till death without checking morale. So creatures with a morale score between 2 and 12 will need to check morale at some time during a battle. So how do you check morale? Basically, or when to check morale is, in general, it is checked in critical combat situations. 2 recommended times for morale checks according to the basic rules are after a side's first death in combat, either monsters or characters, but we're talking about monsters here mostly. So when the monster has experiences a death, it will impact the morale. And then when half the monsters have been incapacitated, killed, or made to go to sleep due to magic. So half the monsters are incapacitated, then the morale is going to be applied. So the DM or the referee, as they called it back in the old days, the referee or the DM or the game master will make a check. So monsters that successfully check morale twice will fight to the death, and you can make some adjustments to morale, which was really cool. Morale can be changed by situations unless the morale score is 2 or a 12. So adjustments to morale may be permanent or temporary, it says. The exact adjustments are left to the DM. A maximum of a +2 or -2 is recommended. For example, if a monster is losing a battle, their morale score may be temporarily adjusted by -1. If they are winning, the monster's morale score may be temporarily adjusted by +1. And then it goes on to talk about retainers, which are kind of like hirelings. If you think of DDO or Dungeons & Dragons Online, or if you just think of the first edition or second edition, morale means a retainer is like a hireling. So if you're a knight and you're a high level, or a fighter, a high level, you can have some retainers working for you. And that's all that means. And they would also have a morale check. So all the monsters are like this. The second edition monster manual, for example, if you look at a shadow dragon, the shadow dragon size gives you the size and all the special defenses and stats, but the stat blocks has the morale of a champion, which means it's a 16. And if you're using the basic rules, you have that. So obviously the morale rules were a little bit different from basic to the second edition, first and second edition, because they have a wider range. You have a champion which is 16. I think they do explain it like in the front of the book. They should have, oh, here we go. Okay, so basically morale is a general rating of how likely the monster is to persevere in the face of adversity or armed opposition. So they break it down into a bigger range than the basic set or the basic rules, the Molde rules. Well, they'll have 2 to 20 range. So you can have 2 to 4 would be an unreliable monster, morale wise, and then 8 to 10 is the average. So 13, 14. So the champion and the fanatic that we looked at basically means that they are pretty. They're not going to back down in a fight, basically, just because their morale is so uh, a lot higher. So that is the morale mechanic for Dungeons and Dragons from the old edition, dating back all the way to D&D, even before first edition, we had it back in the Mold Bay edition of the rules. And I really like this, like I said, this mechanic because it makes total sense to me. If you're going to fight, like today, for example, we had a fight. I was DMing the game, and the party was going up against a small number, a small band of goblins, and goblins tend to be lower tier monsters, so they're not going to be like it's not like a boss fight or anything like that, where it's going to be a big threat to the character, especially since they were first level. You kind of treat them with a little bit, excuse me, you kind of treat them with a little bit of, you know, being careful that they you don't throw like huge challenge rating creatures at them. And so they really didn't have a lot of problem dealing with these goblins, which have an average hit point of 7, and so they were easily dealing with them. And actually, what ended up happening is that 2 of the monsters were defeated, and the third goblin, just ran away. He just kind of bolted because a goblin is, like I said, they're not going to be. They're kind of cowardly, and they're not going if they see their comrades or colleagues or other peers being defeated, they're not going to stick around for long. And so, but what ended up happening is the characters were smart enough to listen to good advice. I kind of nudged them a little bit as a DM because one of them was absent, so I had to play one of the PCs. But there was a suggestion to go ahead and take prisoners and take one of the remaining monsters that was goblins, one of the remaining goblins as hostage, so they could get more information, and they did, and that moves the adventure along. So that was pretty much what I expected to happen. And so there you have it. The morale mechanic for can be easily inserted or incorporated into your 5e games, and I hope you use it because I think it's a great way to. It's very realistic, and it's a great way to. You don't have to. You don't roll out of check spread, but you know it makes total sense to me that sometimes the opposition or monsters are not going to stick around if the battles are not going well for them. So thank you so much for tuning in or finding us again here on the YouTube channel. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe, to hit the like button, or to ring for notifications. And until next time, this has been New DM Ariel, and may all your roles be with you.